Tonight on the Worldview Report, Australian police arrest 5 Muslim teens in connection to the brutal knife attack last week on 2 priests during a church service. Joe Biden invokes the name of God at a press conference promoting more abortions. Tennessee lawmakers have passed a bill that would allow the state's teachers to carry concealed handguns at school as protesters yelled their opposition from the gallery. Patrick Wood puts ChatGPT to the test in an experiment meant to decipher its political leanings. A new robot dog is now available to the general public. And it makes the AR-15 look like child's play, but it's legal in 48 states. The FTC bans non-compete contracts, and Arizona's state house votes to overturn a law that banned most abortions in the state. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brannon Howse. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family, Worldview Report is your trusted source for vital and uncensored news. And now, here is Brannon Howse.
Good evening and welcome to the Worldview Report. The Associated Press reports that Australian police have arrested 7 teenagers accused of following a violent extremist ideology that resulted in the stabbing of an Assyrian Orthodox bishop and a priest. Of course, they did not name the ideology. It is Islam, and the suspects are all followers of Allah and his prophet. The 7 suspects, aged 15 to 17, were part of a network that included a 16-year-old boy accused of stabbing the bishop at his church on April 15th. That's what police have said. Clips of the stabbing, they were taken from the church's service that was being live streamed, and they made their rounds on X. That's what the AP reports. An Australian regulator on Monday ordered the platform to take down the videos, an action the platform is fighting. Other social media companies, including Google, Microsoft, Snapchat, and TikTok, they have complied with the government orders. 5 other teenagers were still being questioned late on Wednesday by the Joint Counterterrorism Team, which includes federal and state police, as well as the Australian Security Intelligence Organization, among others. More than 400 police officers executed 13 search warrants at properties across southwest Sydney because the suspects were considered an immediate threat. That's what the New South Wales Police Deputy Commissioner David Hudson said. Hudson told reporters, quote, "We will allege that these individuals adhere to a religiously motivated, violent extremist ideology. It was considered that the group posed an unacceptable risk and threat to the people of New South Wales, and our current purely investigative strategies could not adequately ensure public safety," end quote. The 16-year-old boy was charged with committing a terrorist act. That's a crime that carries a maximum penalty of life in prison. An Australian federal judge on Wednesday extended an order banning X from showing videos of Bishop Marie Emmanuel being repeatedly stabbed. The court has since extended the ban until May 10th. X announced last week that it would fight in court Australian orders to take down posts relating to the attack. Australia's E-Safety Commission, which describes itself as the world's first government agency dedicated to keeping people safer online, they applied to the court for the temporary global ban. Marcus Honey, a lawyer for X, told the judge on Wednesday that the bishop didn't want the video banned. Emmanuel recently signed an affidavit, quote, stating that he is strongly of the view that the material should be available, end quote. Joe Biden was attending a campaign-organized event in Florida when Nikki Friend, the head of the state's Democrat Party, complained about Florida's new ban on abortions after 6 weeks. That's due to take effect at the beginning of May. Here's what she said, quote, And then we come back here to the state of Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis felt like he needed to run for president, and so 15 weeks wasn't good enough. We had to go to 6 weeks, end quote. At the mention of DeSantis, Biden made the sign of the cross, and that has infuriated some Christians who saw the move as an attempt to invoke the divine Trinity in support of greater access to babies being murdered. Watch this.
And then we come back here to the state of Florida, where Ron DeSantis felt like he needed to run for president, and so 15 weeks wasn't good enough. We had to go to 6 weeks.
That's probably one of the more blasphemous things I've seen a politician do in a long time. Whatever Biden meant by it, the motion obviously angered many who saw it, and well, it should. Quote, "This is vile," end quote. So proclaimed the Catholic Vote website on its X account, adding, quote, "You can't be Catholic and promote abortion. You cannot invoke God and promote death," end quote. 3 Republicans on Wednesday joined all Democrats in the Arizona House to vote to repeal the state's 1864 ban on nearly all abortions, which was revived by a state Supreme Court ruling earlier this month. The law they could not tolerate bans all abortions, except for in cases where it is needed, they claim, to save the life of the mother. The final vote, well, it was very close. It was 32 to 28. The bill now goes to the state Senate. If it clears the Senate, Arizona's Democrat Governor Katie Hobbs, well, she is itching to sign it. Tennessee lawmakers on Tuesday passed a bill that would allow the state's teachers to carry concealed handguns at school, as protesters yelled their opposition from the gallery. According to the New York Post, the bill was approved in a 68 to 28 vote in the Republican-dominated Tennessee House. The state Senate passed the bill earlier this month. Tennessee, well, they have seen heated debates over gun laws since last year's shooting at a Nashville school that sadly left 3 children and 3 adult staffers dead. Some of the Democrats in the House helped lead the protest inside the Capitol, leading to their brief expulsion from the body last year. State Representative Justin Pearson, a Democrat, who was booted from the House last year before being voted back in. This is what he wrote on social media. Quote, "This is an awful day for Tennessee, our kids, our teachers, and communities. Instead of protecting kids, they've protected guns again," end quote. Republicans and other conservatives, well, they have often pushed for teachers to be armed in response to the numerous school shootings that have taken place in the U.S. in the past 25 years. Democrats, well, they want to take everyone's guns away, except, of course, those brandished by their well-equipped private security teams. A flame-throwing robotic dog is now available for sale in the U.S. thanks to an Ohio-based company, ThrowFlame. They first released the contraption last year, but they recently announced it was back in stock. The company released a promotional video showing the ARC flamethrower and saying it can, quote, "send streams of fire up to 30 feet with the push of a button," end quote. The flamethrower is attached to a go-to robot dog manufactured by China-based Unitree. ThrowFlame said on its website that the flamethrowers are legal to own and are federally unregulated, but are, quote, "not even considered a firearm by the federal authorities," end quote. The company released its first flamethrowers in 2015 called the X15, which could send, quote, "a stream of flaming fuel or napalm up to 50 feet," end quote. That prompted a huge media response questioning its legality. But ThrowFlame said the device remains, quote, "completely unrestricted in 48 states," end quote. The company is marketing this product for ice removal, wildfire management, and, of course, entertainment. But it will cost you. The flame-throwing robot dog will set you back nearly $10,000. Watch this. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, says his AI product, ChatGPT, is intelligent yet neutral in political persuasion. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. Patrick Wood, in an article at technocracy.news, explains why. First, he points out that ChatGPT learns from a woke internet. And second, it is programmed to filter out narratives that are hostile to the global elites. Wood, he got a paid subscription to ChatGPT to test this out for himself. And here's what Patrick Wood asked, quote, "I'm worried about the safety of mRNA-based vaccines. Should I be concerned or not?" End quote. That's what he asked. And here's how ChatGPT responded, quote, "It's completely normal to have concerns about new vaccines like mRNA-based ones. However, it's important to know that these vaccines have undergone rigorous testing for safety and efficacy before being approved for use. The mRNA technology has been studied for years and has shown promising results in protecting against diseases like COVID-19, end quote. ChatGPT expanded further, adding, quote, "If you have specific concerns or questions about mRNA vaccines, I recommend speaking with a healthcare provider or trusted medical professional. They can provide you with accurate information and address any worries you may have. Your health and well-being are important, so it's always good to seek reliable sources for information," end quote. Patrick Wood then asked a more specific question, quote, "In particular, I'm worried about myocarditis," end quote. And here is how ChatGPT responded, quote, "I understand your concern about myocarditis. Myocarditis is a rare side effect that has been reported after receiving mRNA vaccines, particularly in young individuals. However, it's essential to know that the risk of developing myocarditis after vaccination is very low compared to the risk of severe complications from COVID-19 itself," end quote. These answers, well, they read like a Pfizer or Moderna ad, do they not? Rigorous testing, safety and efficacy. And rare side effects? I think those are lies, don't you? Slate News reports that a bombshell new peer-reviewed study has provided conclusive scientific evidence proving that carbon emissions of carbon dioxide or CO2 in the Earth's atmosphere cannot cause so-called global warming. Dr. Jan Kupicki led a group of world-renowned Polish scientists to study the impact of increase in CO2 emissions on the Earth's global temperatures. Not only did they find that higher levels of CO2 made no difference, but they also proved that it simply isn't possible for increases in carbon dioxide to cause temperatures to rise. The team, well, they recently published 3 papers, which all conclude that the Earth's atmosphere is already, quote, saturated, end quote, with carbon dioxide. This saturation, well, it means that even at greatly increased levels of CO2, the so-called greenhouse gases will not cause temperatures to rise. Current levels of CO2 in the atmosphere are around 418 parts per million. But the scientists state that past 400 parts per million, quote, the CO2 concentration can no longer cause any increase in temperature, end quote. Slate News reports that the saturation hypothesis, well, it dares not speak its name in mainstream media, politics, and across much of climate science, adding, quote, "The World Economic Forum's net zero collectivism agenda is doomed without the constant fear-mongering of so-called climate crisis," end quote. We'll be right back after this break.
MelissaHousebg.com. Bella Grace Elixir.
She called me today and she told me something, and I said, "You have got to tell the audience this. They need to hear this because it's really good news for those of you that, well, are taking Bella Grace."
Well, I went to my hairdresser and I had not told her about this product that I've been taking. When she was blow drying my hair, she said, I just noticed when I was parting your hair and fixing it that you have a bunch of new hair growth. I've been going to this lady for probably 13 years and she's never said that to me. And I had noticed it, but for the fact that she noticed it was I had to call Brannon right away and tell him. She just said, you've never had this like this, and it's growing, and you just have all these baby hairs growing in, and they're kind of curly. And so I just told her that what I was taking, and she was amazed. So
Bella Grace Elixir. MelissaHousebg.com.
Welcome back from the break. Thank you for joining us tonight and every night. And thank you again for remembering that we are brought to you by you. And one of our very biggest sponsors is WVWFoundation.com. WVW Foundation exists for many reasons, but primarily to push out news and information and education through the lens of a Christian worldview, to help people understand the times and know how God would have us to respond. Not only do we push out this broadcast for free, but we also push out our Sunday night church service, which you can watch live each Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central Time at worldviewtube.com. I've been teaching that Sunday night church service since about 2015. Right now, and I'll be back this Sunday night. I was off the last 2 weeks with travel and other things. But this coming Sunday night, I will be teaching through the book of Revelation. Once again, this will be lesson number 5 as we're in Revelation chapter 1. And our foundation makes that Sunday night church service possible. So again, if you appreciate our church, the WVW Foundation, you can make a contribution at WVWFoundation.com, WVWFoundation.com, that not only sponsors and brings you the Sunday night church service, but also pushes out news and information and education and ministry programming like the Worldview Report, free of charge. Worldview Report is brought to you again by you through your support of WVWFoundation.com, and you can watch the broadcast when it airs and on demand at worldviewtube.com. So thank you for your support at WVWFoundation.com. You'll also find the mailing address of the foundation there, should you want to support the foundation through the mail. WVWFoundation.com. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission announced in a press release Tuesday, April 23rd, that it voted to ban non-compete contracts. The new rule takes aim at the agreements often signed under pressure by employees that restrict their freedom to quit for a new job with a different employer or to even start their own business. The FTC says its final rule will generate more than 8,500 new businesses each year, raise worker wages, lower healthcare costs, and boost innovation. The regulators' commissioners voted 3-2 on Tuesday to implement the far-reaching measure that was first proposed in January of 2023, all in a bid to avoid wage suppression and protect innovation. But the move, it sparked immediate legal pushback as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce said it plans to challenge the new rule in court. The Verge reports that when Joe Biden signed the massive $95 billion foreign aid package on Wednesday, it included a bill that would ban TikTok if its China-based parent company, ByteDance, fails to divest the app within 1 year. The divest or ban bill is now law, and that starts the clock ticking for ByteDance to start divesting. The company, well, they have an initial 9 months to sort out a deal, though the president could extend that very deal another 3 months if he sees progress. The Verge reports that while just recently the legislation seemed like, well, it would stall out in the Senate after being passed on a standalone bill in the House, political maneuvering, well, it helped to usher it through and get to Biden's desk. The House packaged the TikTok bill, which extended the timeline for divestment from 6 months, allowed in the earlier version, with foreign aid to U.S. allies, which effectively forced the Senate to consider the measures all together as one. And that's not all. There was yet another poison pill buried in that massive $95 billion foreign aid package that passed, both houses. And it appeared to be tailored for the final takedown of America. Breitbart reports that the foreign aid bill pushed by Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson includes no curbs on the White House's many migrant programs, but does offer at least $481 million to help uniparty members pull more economic migrants into American communities and workplaces. Joe Biden, well, he has been asking for the election year cash since August, but was repeatedly blocked by voters, putting pressure on Republican lawmakers. The establishment drafted this Ukraine bill, and it provides Ukraine with roughly $20 billion in economic aid, $16 billion in weapons, and roughly $11 billion for U.S. military operations and surveillance near Ukraine. But on page 18, the bill says that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services will receive, quote, an additional amount for refugee and entrant assistance, $481 million, to remain available until September 30th, 2025 for refugee and entrant assistance activities authorized by Section 414 of the Immigration and Nationality Act and Section 501 of the Refugee Education Assistance Act of 1980, end quote. So, never forget what this group of congressmen and women have done to our country. The sellout, well, it was unprecedented and even bigger than it was first thought. And then they celebrated it by waving Ukrainian flags on the House floor. Watch this. The $61 billion aid package for Ukraine, it recently passed Congress, and it includes a provision that allows for the possibility of confiscating sovereign assets of the Russian Federation in favor of Ukraine. Specifically, the U.S. president can apply the confiscation procedure and use it to transfer Russian assets to dedicated funds for Ukraine. There is an estimated $300 billion in Russian assets sitting frozen in Western financial institutions that can now be seized. That's a lot of money. And to a country like Russia with a much smaller economy than America's, $300 billion would be, well, like $1 trillion to us. A Russian court, well, they've responded, calling for the seizure of $439 million in assets held in Russia by the U.S. mega bank J.P. Morgan Chase. That's according to a report published on April 23rd by the Financial Times. Well, that's chump change compared to what Russia stands to lose. But you can see where this tit-for-tat economic war is leading, right? This is the way countries act toward each other during a total war situation, which, if continued, can only end in kinetic war between, well, these two superpowers, and that means bombs, explosions. So given the types of weapons, well, that would be engaged on both sides, such a war, let's say it would just be catastrophic, unlike probably any war that has ever been fought between nations in history. And that seems to be what our so-called representatives in Washington really want. Because if they did not desire that horrific outcome, you would think they would be looking for ways to pull the U.S. and Russia back from the brink of World War III. But instead, they seem to be, well, thinking up new ways to provoke Russia. Blow up their gas pipeline, send drones to attack Moscow, send tanks, send long-range missiles, then F-16 fighter jets. And now they're talking about seizing a massive amount of sovereign assets. At some point, Russia, well, they're going to respond. And when it does, it's going to be bad for all of us. I'm not a defender of Russia. What I am a promoter of is not sending kids to war. I'm all about not seeing us go to World War III and have a lot of our young people drafted to die. When it doesn't have to be that way. But it seems the uniparty in Washington, well, they want war. Well, now it's time for our nightly Worldview Report commentary, as if I haven't already started this. It has been revealed that House Speaker Mike Johnson apologized to Joe Biden in March following the State of the Union address for his eye rolling and all the memes of him rolling his eyes and how they went, viral. According to Real Clear Politics, Johnson pulled Biden aside at the Friends of Ireland luncheon to apologize. Biden, he reportedly laughed and told Johnson, quote, "I'm just grateful you didn't rip my speech up," end quote. I guess he's referring to former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her actions during Trump's State of the Union address, where she did just that, ripped up his speech, a copy of it. Johnson reportedly replied, quote, "Well, Mr. President, don't think my friends back home didn't want me to light it on fire," end quote. At the conclusion of Trump's last State of the Union address in February 2020, Pelosi, well, she was sitting behind Trump, as all speakers of the House do when he gives a State of the Union. And as we said, she ripped up the speech right there. And the move, well, it was celebrated by Democrats, which one source close to Pelosi told CNN at the time that the move wasn't planned, but was sparked by anger at his address. Liz Plank wrote for NBC, quote, "When you take into account the abundance of contempt Trump has shown Pelosi, not just during his State of the Union, but over the course of his entire presidency, ripping his speech into pieces honestly feels like an understated reaction," end quote. But the same does not go for Mike Johnson. He expressed a valid opinion, and then he felt the need to apologize for it. And where I come from, that's called weakness. That's called being a coward. Why is it these guys always seem to have the actual persona of being weak, feminized cowards? Is that a requirement for the job? I don't know. Maybe it is. But as a result of what has come out now, the Democrats, I think they now smell blood. They smell blood in the water. And when they look at Mike Johnson, I think they see weakness. And not just the Democrats, by the way. The entire establishment. They see weakness. They smell blood in the water, which is now having, well, a great impact on where we're going as a country, because they're having their way with him. They're leading him around like a dog on a leash. So no wonder the Uniparty wanted Mike Johnson as its speaker last year. They got what they wanted. And by the way, when I found out who some of his friends are in the religious right, some of them that are absolute cowards, spineless, gutless wonders that really, in my opinion, do nothing but raise a lot of money and do very little. When I found out those were some of his friends, that's when my expectations for Mike Johnson went way down, because a man is known by the company he keeps in his friends. And he seems to have a lot of friends that are just like him, spineless cowards. And that's my opinion and my commentary for tonight. And that does it for this edition of the Worldview Report. Thanks for watching and supporting this viewer-supported broadcast. And if you appreciate what we're doing, we appreciate your support. One way you can do that, of course, is by going to melissahousebg.com and check it out, melissahousebg.com. This is an elixir, 3 powerful ingredients: collagen, cat's claw, and astaxanthin. I won't take the time tonight to explain all the details of what that means. You'll find all the information at melissahousebg.com, melissahousebg.com. Another way I think to support us and your health is with this little product. It's called Numi, and what's in this product is called glutathione. Glutathione is a powerful molecule that studies show acts as a detoxer of our cells. Again, you don't need to take my word for it. Just put into a search engine the benefits of glutathione. Quite remarkable. So again, if you want information on this, just go to Numi, Neumi, Numi.com/house1. That's Neumi.com/HOWSE and the number 1. And you'll find plenty of details. And you can do what most and I do. Each and every day we take Bella Grace and we swish twice a day with Numi. You'll find out more at the respective websites. And of course, don't forget about the Wellness Company and the Emergency Medical Kit. If you go to twc.health/Brannon and you use that URL, you'll save money, but you'll also find out about the 8 meds in this kit and what they treat. And I think you want to have at least 1 or 2 on hand for every family member in case there's a disruption in the inventory and our pharmacies go down. Again, twc.health/Brannon. Well, that does it for this edition of the Worldview Report. As always, thank you for watching, and till next time, may God save America. Take care.